Welcome to the World of Horror podcast with Mom and Mac. I'm Mom.
And I'm Mac.
This is the podcast where we share our love of international horror. Disclaimers for adult language and spoilers. Hi, Mac. How's it going?
Hi, Mom. It's going pretty good. Had like a nice chill Sunday so far. Watched these movies. And yeah, I do feel a little bit of like violent thoughts towards my new upstairs neighbor. But I expressed them to Alan healthily. I said, what I would like to do is scream at them to shut the fuck up, but I'm not going to do that. And he said, yeah, you probably shouldn't. Yeah. And, you know, I only had one moment where in the second movie we shall cover, one part where John Lithgow's going crazy, I just started turning it up super high, and I was like, your move, like to the upstairs people, like, I know this is annoying.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I turned it down.
He gets really scary in a couple of moments.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I went to see you yesterday, and we went to see Final Destination Bloodlines.
It was so good.
It was so fun.
Like, honestly, maybe I know I got recency bias, but it was like when I was talking about it to Alan, like he even laughed when I told him some of the great like jokes and whatnot. Like, it was a fun movie.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. And I on the way back to town, I listened to an interview with the two directors, and now I want to see it in IMAX, because apparently an Easter egg sort of is like whenever death shows up, they do this thing where it like goes into IMAX. And
what?
When death is done, it like goes back to like regular.
Let's go to IMAX together. I'll go again. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, Quinn just saw Sinners, but she saw it in the small theater. And I would like to see that in IMAX also, because I heard the sound design is really good.
Oh my God, I bet it is.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm always like, really? Like, do I really want to pay all that much more money for IMAX? But in these two cases, I would say probably yes.
Yeah, they're high quality. I feel like most of them, like, no offense to any Marvel fans, but, I don't feel like those need to be seen. I guess like movies that could maybe even be watched on your TV, which a lot of movies feel like. But yeah, like Sinners, that felt like just a great, like, this is going to be the summer of Sinners. People are just going to remember that. And like everybody I know has seen it, which is not normal. Like I feel like movie viewership has dropped off, like theater viewership. But it's like almost, that's the only reason why I saw it, is because so many people were like, that movie's really good.
Yeah. So that was a good day yesterday. And then tomorrow's a holiday.
I know. I'm so happy.
It's sort of, in the States, WoHos, if you don't celebrate Memorial Day, that just sort of marks like the beginning of summer. So it was a little slightly dicey to travel yesterday. At least going in one direction toward the beach, but coming back toward the mountains, not so much.
Nice.
Yeah, wasn't too bad. And yeah, I have basically one more class until my main school starts up. So I've got basically like one more week-ish of vacation. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, you're gonna enjoy it. I feel like it'll be good for your brain and soul.
I think so too. Yeah. It'll be like relaxing, like checking into a rest home.
Oh my God. Like that movie is one that I'm like, I think it's good Dad never saw that movie, because I feel like that would have freaked him out a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like again, I know I'll get into it, but I just was joking with Alan that anytime, and WoHos, I mean like growing up, all ages, whenever my dad would and I would have maybe like a nice moment, or he would do something nice for me, he'd go, "Don't put me in the roach home." Like that was always on his mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's on a lot of people's minds. I mean, we don't have a good system here in
It's
the
scary.
US. I mean, if you can afford it, I guess it's probably okay.
But even then, if you don't have an advocate, like
Yeah.
they could still be doing whatever to you.
Yeah. Totally. So that's not really the case in the first movie we're going to talk
Yeah.
about, but in the second one, definitely. In fact, I was just watching some interviews with John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush, and one of the interviewers said, "True or false, if you're going to go into a rest home, this is a good advertisement for having kids." And they were like, "Yeah, probably so." Um, yeah. So anyway, our first film. So today we're talking about horror in the old folks' home, and that's a genre we made up. And our first film is called Next of Kin. And here's the short plot summary from IMDb. In a rest home for elderly people, a daughter reads her mother's diary. Soon, events that are mentioned in the mother's diary begin to happen to the daughter, which is true. I'm not sure if that's what I would say, but
Yeah.
so it's hit or miss with IMDb short plot summaries. So this is directed by Tony Williams, screenplay by Williams and Michael Heath, starring Jackie Karen, John Jarrett, Gerda Nicholson, and Alex Scott. Cinematography by Gary Hansen, edited by Max Lemon, cool name. Music by Klaus Schulze. Release date 1982, and it has a running time of 89 minutes. How'd you feel about this runtime, Matt?
Um. Well, okay. First thing I want to say, I would not say I disliked this movie, but I would say it is kind of incredible to make a movie feel slow when it is less than 90 minutes. Whereas the second movie is not a lot longer, but longer and felt like when it was done, I was like, I want it again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie is incredibly slow paced. It's a vibes movie, and I remember liking it. That's all I
Mhm.
kind of remembered about it. And so when I thought about this in terms of the other one, I just thought, well, it's a film that I like, takes place at old folks' home, and it. I forgot about the fact that there's basically two sentences of plot.
But it's
And
so beautiful,
it is
honestly.
really, really beautiful.
Yeah, and I enjoyed first off I was thinking cuz you had mentioned to me yesterday like make sure you pick the right next of kin because there's a lot of films with that title because what a great title. I feel like that it it fits the movie perfectly and uh I don't know if I definitely like the beginning the most. I actually
Oh
find
yeah.
the slow part the most engaging because I'm like
Hmm.
really getting to know the characters and connecting with her and then by the end I'm like this feels like a different movie.
There was one thing I wanted to not forget to mention. So there's one shot toward the end when she is like running down the stairs, and I thought this is a Ty West House of the Devil moment.
Yes. Yeah, running through a giant like wooden house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. All right. So a young woman, bloody and exhausted, is at a gas station. In voiceover, we hear, "To my daughter, Linda Mary Stevens, I leave my entire estate, all goods, chattels, and worldly possessions that comprise the estate of Montclair." And we get the title card and credits. That young woman drives a truck with a kid standing in the back. And there are these beautiful long shots as she's like driving down the road. She arrives at the gas station. Linda is welcomed back to town by the father of the child and proprietor of the gas station. We learn that Linda's mother has died and she has inherited Montclair Retirement Home.
You know, this movie is actually kind of similar to Final Destination Bloodlines. It,
Really?
well, I feel like it hits a lot of the same like daughter's been away for a while. In Bloodlines case granddaughter, but you know, she inherits this book and you know, it helps her figure out the events of the future.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice connections, Mac.
Thanks.
There's an outside scene with Lance and the laundry. Okay, so
I
Lance is
love
one
him.
of the elderly residents of this place. And there's just, I mean, just the scene is basically like the two of them folding up bed sheets that have been hanging on a laundry line outside because it's about to start raining. and it's just gorgeous.
It's really sweet too. Like it starts just pouring and like we just see her pull him forward, like kind of like a crane. And then she had stopped him from watering the flowers because it was literally about to rain. And I felt like that. I feel like that's a sweet depiction of like, you know, dealing with people whose faculties are declining. Like that could have been
Mhm.
presented in like a certain way, but it was kind of almost sweet. And I feel like it established, I really enjoyed, I liked the character off the bat. She seemed like a nice person.
Yeah, yeah. And it's yeah, I guess maybe a save the cat moment, instead of saving the cat, you save the old person. That's another way to show that the character is a good person.
Mm-hmm.
So Linda explores the house, and there's a great shot of the spiral staircase, and she hears a cat meowing. Okay, WoHos, gotta say, there are cats in both of these movies, and they both survive.
I almost Googled, does the cat die? But I knew you would have like warned me ahead of time. But yeah, they were both gorgeous cats. And I was like, please, like, let them both be okay.
This one I think is called a ragdoll. It's really, really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Linda is dismayed that there's going to be a new arrival, Mrs. Ryan, tonight. Her Aunt Connie says they need the money, but Linda says she doesn't want any more people. Amid a thunderstorm, lightning strikes and knocks down a tree, driving as this new resident is coming up to the estate. Mrs. Ryan's son carries her into a wheelchair. This whole scene is nuts.
Yes, it's absolutely crazy.
So we get the tree that, cuts down we get the lightning strike, cuts down the tree. And then this guy is like dead set about getting his mother inside, like right now.
Yeah.
And so he puts her in the wheelchair. Of course, they're on grass, so that's not going to go. So he's like, you're going to have to walk. And so they like walk up to the building. But it's just sort of frenetic. And it just seems like, what's the urgency?
And yeah, I do feel like the foreshadowing, I couldn't say I knew exactly what was going to happen in the end, but as soon as you see this guy and you know his name's Kelvin and they've put makeup on so it looks like he's got like rings under his eyes, you're like, he's evil. Like, and so then as soon as I saw him, and then when we see John Jarrett, I was like, and he's not. Like, I feel like they could have played up the John Jarrett a lot more, you know?
I know. I think I read it was his first role, but he was 30.
What?
So I don't think that's true. That's not true.
He
That's
looks
not
like
true.
a baby.
No, because he's in Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Yeah.
And that's a lot earlier.
Mm.
I think. Well, it's earlier anyway. Okay, so Linda helps Lance to bed. He is a veteran and recounts to Linda a story of being in North Africa during a heavy downpour when a latrine was blown to bits by a shell. Linda reads her mother's diary. In voiceover, Linda's mom explains that Lance was like a father to Linda. There's a line in the diary about someone walking around at night and her not being able to sleep. Linda looks out the window and there's a man standing outside in the rain. When she looks again, he's gone.
Sounds a little bit just beating you over the head, you know, with like, I just looked, I was like, that's Kelvin. Like, they've just made Kelvin seem so evil off the bat. And, you know, you got a little lightning strike happening. It's like, okay, only bad things are about to occur now. And I really liked this movie. It's just some parts it was almost like, well, let's just speed it up then, because I already know, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Linda can't sleep well. In her dream, she sees the hallway in the house extend in a creepy way. Yeah, so I don't know how this camera shot is done, but it looks so cool. Because she's just looking at it straight on, and then it just sort of feels like it extends further away. She dreams of being in the house in her childhood. The next morning, Lance discovers that one of the residents has drowned in the bathtub.
What a great scene.
Oh, it is so good. Because first we just see the steam coming out from the bathroom. We see this old man getting ready to take his bath. So sweet. Mm-hmm. And he puts his foot in the bathtub, and then we're underneath and we see him touch the head of somebody who's in there.
And his face is just so horrified. It's so good.
It's really good. We meet a young John Jarrett, Barney, who meets Linda and he dives in buck naked, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so. He's like a real rapscallion.
I mean, he's a wild one. Um, they visit Linda's mother's grave, and Barney catches her up on what has happened to their classmates. There's a scene in the forest where they play hide and seek. Linda thinks she sees Barney in the distance, but it is someone else. When Barney goes to check it out, the man is gone.
And I like this. I was like, I see what you're doing here. Like, I'm supposed to think maybe this guy's evil. So if they had really just downplayed Kelvin, I would have maybe been like, John Jarrett. But I was like, I feel like they're just faking me out right now. He's so nice.
He is really nice. When Linda returns to Montclair, she learns about Collins, the man who died in the bath, and that Lance has suffered a minor stroke. The doctor tells Linda that her mother's stress led to her death.
This doctor did not do himself any favors. I totally get why she was suspicious of him, because I think so often characters are expressing to this woman, like, why do you want to know about your family's history? Like, why wouldn't I? Like, there's no reason to give. It's like, clearly.
Yeah, he's like, don't look into the past. It's like, dude.
Like, my mom just died and left me all this shit, so I'm gonna
really
be doing
suspicious. That. And then we get the scene with Carol. She comes to pick up Barney for a party. So it seems like Carol and Barney were dating. Linda and Barney had something in the past that was like, deeper or whatever. But I like Linda's character because she's kind of like, it's totally okay. Like, of course, like I just got back to town. Like, makes sense that you're seeing somebody.
Yeah.
Carol's trying to make her jealous, and Linda's like, no, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm cool.
Have a good time at the party. When she goes back in the house, she hears the doctor and Connie speaking behind a closed door. Upstairs, we get a repeat of the shot of the hallway that extends creepily. When Linda checks in on Lance, she finds his window is open. She closes it and goes back into the office, where she falls asleep. There's a kitty jump scare. We follow the cat, who goes into the room with the dead man covered in a sheet, and the cat hides.
They really kept this guy with like no ice, like no. Like, God, you just got this corpse in here. This is horrible.
Yeah, for days.
Yes, days. And he looks, I know they couldn't do a lot, but when he kept popping up, I was like, this guy again?
I know. And so I read in the trivia, this was a particularly hot summer. And you sort of see it with the actors, like they're sweating a lot, where there's no reason for them to be sweating. And yeah, but I mean, anyway, it's Australia. I don't think it's good at any time to like keep a body just like lying around.
Yeah.
Linda's going over the records and finds in the ledger references to Dr. R.B. and Rita. She assumes that Dr. R.B. is Dr. Barton. Then the power goes out. She hears the cat meowing and tries to find it as she moves through the house with a flashlight. Someone has uncovered Mr. Collins's body. Linda fixes the fuse and gets a call from Barney. He wants to see her, but she says she's on her own, just as she sees a candle burning.
I would be so scared.
Yeah, me too, totally. As she's talking on the phone, she hears a click and heavy breathing on the line. She leaves the phone off the hook and goes to the other phone, which is hung up. She finds the cat downstairs. She sees another candle burning in a bedroom downstairs. She hears water dripping and finds that water is turned on in a bathroom and a sink and bathtub are overflowing. She sits on a bed, rocking back and forth. Later, she has dreams of walking through the halls as a child. She dreams that Mr. Collins is banging on her window. That was a cool shot.
I loved that shot.
Someone is crawling in through her window, but it's only Barney. He hugs her and they kiss and then they make love.
Their relationship was so sweet. Like, I really loved the idea of this kind of, she seems kind of quiet and a bit reserved, but that she's just totally into this guy who's kind of crazy, but and
Mm.
it was just very sweet and wholesome.
And he's really into her too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know about crawling into somebody's window.
That's a bit much.
But we'll let it pass. Next morning, Barney takes off. It's kind of funny. He just like flags down a garbage truck or something and like catches a ride. And all the residents are going on a scenic tour. Linda goes looking for Lance and finds him in his jammies at the fountain. He retrieves a red beret. Linda puts Lance to bed and asks if he remembers her Aunt Rita and when did she die. He says he remembers her, but she didn't die.
Now, I understand why she would, she trusts, Lancelot, but I feel like I would have maybe liked it if she kind of dismissed this, because this is the most normal thing that could ever happen in an old folks home is you're talking to somebody and you're like, when did they die? And they're like, they're not dead. It's like, okay, absolutely normal experience that you will go through. So it's amazing
all my
that
credence.
Yeah, she's
this, like old man.
Yeah, anybody she told would have been like, okay, like
exactly.
You need to get used to this.
Carol's car is outside, but leaves before Linda can talk to her. Linda speaks to Connie and says someone was in the house and left the taps running in her bathroom. No mention of the candles.
And she should have said, when I say the tap's running, I mean like it was flooding the bathroom, because tap running could be like, oh, a drip, whatever. But this is like they turned every faucet on. That's insane.
Yes. Barney and Linda have a malted at a restaurant. Barney says that Linda can stay at his place. She says nah, but they make plans for later. The doc says that Aunt Rita did die in a home. Not the retirement home, in another home. Crazy home. Crazy home. It's a movie.
Yeah, guys, don't at us.
The doctor dismisses her concerns about the accounts and tells her not to dig into the past.
That's just crazy.
And really, like, lazy. Like, I mean, yeah. From what we figure out later, it's like there could have been a little more planning that went into this part of it. Linda thinks she sees someone in an upstairs window in her room wearing her mother's coat. But when she goes to look, there's no one there. Connie assures her that there is just her and Lance in the house, and Lance is asleep. Linda sees her mother's coat lying on a desk covering the diary. In the entry, Linda's mom says that she cannot think straight and she's haunted by the past. She hears a strange noise in the house and the lights go on and off. Taps are left running, keeping her awake. She says there's something evil in the house. Other entries recount Linda as a child discovering the body of a resident lying in the tub, drowned. There is another drowning, and the house is full of whispering. I sort of zoned out for a second.
Yeah.
So one resident drowned. Mm-hmm. Linda found that body. Then I thought in the diary she said, and my friend drowned too. And then there was like a third person that drowned.
People need to investigate these places. Like, one drowning, that could be like, well, but 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 is a lot. At least fix your bathtubs.
Linda finds the old files of the people mentioned in her mother's diaries and finds that the doctor in every case was Barton. Linda goes to look at the body of Mr. Collins and finds there are bruises on his neck. Okay, this guy would be bloated, like, so much.
It's like, just don't include this part if you can't capture that. Then just be like, he's at the morgue, This is, I think, kind of when the movie was starting to lose me a little bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I could totally see that. Well, Barton like sneaks up behind her and she like runs away and she finds that the garage is all like chained up, so she can't really escape. So she does the next logical thing. She runs through the forest. Now, I guess it's supposed to be like the middle of the night, but they must have shot this on a couple of different days as the light kind of like gets darker and lighter and darker and lighter.
Maybe that's why I kind of at one point got confused. Like I felt like I would look up and then look up and see something kind of different. And I was like, I kind of don't know what's happening right now.
But there's a cool long shot of her running across a field.
Yeah.
I like all the long shots because, I mean, it kind of adds to the paranoia of like somebody watching her, you know.
Yeah.
And it's us, but I mean, I don't know, it's kind of cool. She finds Barney and has a panic attack, but he calms her down.
So sweet.
They walk back to the home and Barney goes inside to get the files for Linda. She is standing by the fountain. This is cool. Very like giallo. This is like,
yes.
So yeah. So the water is like, you know, arcing and then the water turns red.
Yeah.
So great. She sees that Carol is lying on the fountain with her throat cut. Linda runs back up into the house shouting for Barney. Barney's dead body is pushed at her in a wheelchair and comes flying out at her into her arms.
This part was so crazy. I really thought they were going to play it up a little bit and make it be like, did he kill them? But no, they were like, guys, don't worry. John Jarrett was a good guy. And it's like, yeah, I already knew that, but I kind of wanted you to hide it a little bit.
She runs upstairs to rescue Lance and gets him out of the window.
This is so sweet. She's like, just go down the stairs. He's hobbling down.
He's like so confused. She locks the door to Lance's bedroom. Very smart, I thought, behind her and runs into another room. She is soon confronted by Mrs. Ryan, who is in fact Rita, seeking vengeance against Linda's mother for placing her in the hospital.
Man, you know what I just thought of? If only this role had been played by like Angela Lansbury, that would have been, you would have known from the get, okay, that's, you know, her, but I felt like that's what this woman was going for.
I know, but it's so funny because it's like, okay, I feel like if I walked into a room where there was another person, I would know that like right away. I mean, maybe I'm deluding myself, but I feel like you could hear them breathing.
Especially an older lady who's been in like the psych ward. I just feel like she's not an assassin, you know?
But anyway, she's just sitting in the dark in the red coat, you know, and a wig. Anyway, Rita claims that it was Linda's mother who was in fact insane. A crazed Kelvin, Rita's son and Linda's cousin, attacks Linda with a hammer.
Now, this part was so just kind of gross and scary. I don't know. I liked it being an old woman who's, you know, the villain in this, but then to just be like, yeah, and she's got like a rabid son.
Yeah. Linda manages to barricade herself in a bathroom where she finds Dr. Barton's and Connie's bloodied corpses in the bathtub.
So he was just a cagey dude?
Yeah, I think so. He was probably just cooking the books. And then, this is kind of cool. She stabs Rita, like she swings her arm back into the keyhole with the handle of a comb as Rita peers through the door lock.
I loved that because you see, like, you know, there's a moment where she's in the bathroom and then you hear Rita say, like, I can see you standing there. And then she looks at the mirror, clocks the keyhole. Then we get this up close shot of her eye. And then you know it's about to happen, but they thankfully don't show that to you. It's enough what they do. And because, you know, then she's like on the ground, like, that was masterful.
Then she manages to escape. There's a great overhead shot where she's like running down the hallway.
Is that the slow-mo where she's screaming? So it's like, oh.
Yeah, the sound is all fucked up.
I like that.
Yeah, that was really good. And then she gets away by, she gets the truck. But I I think that's a little bit of a plot hole. But anyway, we're not gonna like worry about that right now. I mean, she didn't have to like undo the chain on the garage or anything. But
Yeah, you're right.
that's okay. She arrives at the local diner nearby where the owner's young son Nico is alone. This is the same boy from the beginning. The two barricade themselves in the diner, and then there's this bit with the sugar cubes. Okay, so she's totally like gone. And the little kid is he's like, this is great. Like he's got a helmet on. He has found the shotgun. He is ready for whatever's coming. And she is building this pyramid out of sugar cubes. But I kind of love it
Me too.
because she's just trying to like get herself into the moment, you know, and try to like calm herself down because otherwise she's going to go into full shock otherwise. So I thought that was pretty good. But Kelvin arrives, driving his truck through the side of the building. Using a shotgun, Linda manages to shoot and blow Kelvin away. At dawn, Linda and Nico drive away as the diner becomes engulfed in flames, ignited by the petrol leaking from Kelvin's damaged truck.
This is where I'm like, somebody else wrote the ending than who began this movie, because at the end it felt like such an action movie. And, you know, also she dispatches Kelvin so fast, which I guess is good, but it was kind of like, okay, I guess it's over now. And I thought maybe Rita would come back with like, still, like, that wouldn't kill her, you know, getting stabbed in the eye, but she's gone, I guess. So I kind of would have liked it better if maybe Kelvin was dead and Rita drives through. That would have been something, at least.
That would have been better.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do kind of like it. First, the kid is shooting at the truck and he's just like, it's all like all over the place, all over the truck. And then he freaks out. He's like, Linda. And he like brings her back to life, you know, because she's been like kind of zoned out. And then she basically blows his head away. So, well, here's some trivia, Mac. What phobia is that? We've had this before, probably with Relic, but the fear of old people, or gerontophobia, is a specific type of phobia characterized by an intense and irrational fear of elderly individuals and the process of aging. It's distinct from a general fear of death or aging, as it focuses on the specific fear of interacting with or being around older people.
It is definitely kind of tough. Like, I do think if you are not a sicko who works at a elderly care home, if you're a good person, you're amazing. I feel like that takes a lot of, I don't know, because I think it is uncomfortable. And I mean, I have just my own kind of like medical phobias and stuff. And I swear I mean this like as no offense. It's going to happen to, you're maybe even lucky, you know, if it happens to you, because it's not something everybody does, age. But so no offense if you are an elderly person. I'm not saying you're gross. I'm just saying I don't have this fear, but I think it's unfortunate that it's kind of a natural thing, because I think it does make some people just more predisposed to just being like assholes to older people. Because you just kind of don't want to, some people just don't want to be around them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I feel like I have more of the fear of mental illness or mental decline than a fear of like older people. Like, it's not them that I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of dealing with their like deteriorating brain.
Yeah.
Charles McCallum improvised the story about his character Lance serving in the armed forces during a war. The film featured an early and extensive use of Steadicam, according to the Oz Movies website. There is a really cool shot in the forest when she's looking around, and they're playing hide and seek, and the camera like comes toward her as she's spinning around, and then it goes behind her, and it's just like, I don't know. There's a lot of really cool camera work in this film.
Yeah.
The famous final scene was serendipity for the film. The camera was supposed to track into the back of the truck, which would then depart. After panning down to look at the diner, it was going to explode. However, the special effects man activated the explosion too soon while the camera was still panning, reflecting it onto the highway sign. At the release, many of the audience members commented that not showing the explosion fully was the strongest part of the scene.
I would agree. This has not been an action movie, so even it exploding is kind of insane and something that I'm having to jump to, or I just have to accept that this is happening, even though it makes no sense. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the actor looks up like when the explosion happens, and I wondered if, I just wondered about that. But briefly, what does Letterboxd have to say about it? Cloudboy gave it a half star. Decent to great production, let down by such a drab script. I wish I liked this more, as I always on the lookout for Aussie cinema, but this was dull as paint.
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't give it a half star, but that might be my review.
Cherry gave it 1 star. Feels like I got edged for 89 minutes.
God.
I think that term is really getting overused. Like,
it's scary the way it's broken containment into just popular. Like, people that I don't feel like would ever have said like a sexual word to me have like just mentioned that or other stuff, and it makes you feel a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Childbirth gave it 1 star. The only good bit was the cat.
That was a pretty good cat.
It was a really pretty cat. All right, so Connor gave it 5 stars. One of my all-time faves I found by accident, and I'm grateful I did. A slow burn, paranoia-driven creep fest. Love how insane the last 30 minutes are.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you either love or hate the last part of this film.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it, but I just feel like just everything pops off, and that happens, in other movies too. But when John Jarrett comes like rushing at you,
it's almost comedic.
Yeah, it is. He was dispatched like really fast.
I know. I really feel like what a poor use of such a great actor. And I think they could have made it a bit more of a paranoia mystery and stuff. I really do like the plot, and I loved the beginning part because as someone who's also just inherited a bunch of stuff, like I've got all these diaries and journals from my grandma that I'm sifting through, and I think that part was done very beautifully, and you really got to know the character, and like without saying a lot of words, I think a lot of world building was done. And then it just feels like by the end they were like, fuck it, I don't know, like explosions.
Yeah. I think that's completely fair. Callum gave it 5 stars. Will always check a warm bath. Hell of a final act. Alyssa gave it 5 stars. Relentlessly creepy. I mean, until the last half hour, and then it's something else.
Just a little bit like, okay.
But I would totally encourage people to seek this out. I had to watch it on YouTube, and I think it's just gorgeous. I mean, just sit for the first hour and just like observe, because it's really, really so cool, and all the camera shots and stuff like that are amazing. And then, I mean, just hang in there through the last half hour, but it's it's not strong all the way through. It's not equally strong all the way through, but I think it's still a really good film.
And it feels Aussie. Like they make such great use of the landscape, and I feel like Barney is such an Aussie male character, like him being kind of like a rascally dude but so charming. I think it has all the makings of a great Aussie horror film. I didn't love the ending, but I still think it's a good movie, and I like what they did.
And it's just kind of, I mean, even the last scene with the sugar cubes and stuff.
I loved that like, scene, and he like replaces the bowl and like gives her another set. That was so cool.
Yeah. So I would have kind of liked to see him and her a little more, you
Sweet.
know, interacted a little more. But um, so how would we rate this? Could we rate it in sugar cubes?
Yeah. Give it like 3 sugar cube, 3.5, maybe.
You will?
I think I will. What would you give it?
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say 3.5. I thought you were going to say like 2.5.
I mean, it's like it definitely wasn't my favorite, but after we talked about it more, it was like, yeah, I did really, it got me immediately. And I liked, it's weird. It's almost as if the 30-minute crazy part felt longer than the slow burn
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning because I was interested and invested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is, I mean, there are slow burns and then there are slow burns. I mean, this is really like
Hmm.
world building and vibey. And I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, if you're not in the mood for it, I could see where it would just be like, what am I watching? But I think the camera shots and stuff really keep
Hmm.
me interested. So, um, I forgot what the next question is because I deleted them.
Oh, would you watch it again?
Yeah, I would watch it again. How about
I
you,
feel like
Matt?
I would like to watch it with you again. I don't know if I would watch it by myself.
Okay. And who wins the You Fool Award?
I guess John Jarrett.
I guess so. Yeah, me too. I mean, he was just trying to be a good guy and like help out his friend here, but
Didn't end well
yeah,
for him.
he made a wrong turn somewhere. And
But
what have we learned?
um I don't even know what we've learned. Maybe if you get given a whole like retirement home and
Mhm.
that that's not something you're super wanting to do, just like offload it. You don't need that in your life.
I mean, I think that occurred to her for sure. I mean, it's kind of funny in the beginning because Nico's dad's like, what are you going to do with that big old house? And then the next shot, you see like Montclair retirement home. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh my God. Um, yeah, that would be, I feel like they needed a lot more staff.
Yeah. I don't think they had, I guess, enough actors, but I mean, at one point I thought they were going to do it like the one female nurse they kept showing was like Annie Wilkes before she gets fired as a nurse. Like, I was like, is this where we're going? Is she a Nurse Ratchet? No, she's just a regular person. Okay.
Yeah. 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 I guess, if you're anywhere and candles are inexplicably being lit and
Leave.
taps are like definitely don't sleep overnight there.
No. Go sleep at your hot boyfriend's house.
Yeah, what's stopping you?
Yeah, he asked you to come. I was like,
I
go
think
over
she's
there.
a bigger fool than he is.
You know what? I would agree with you because she also did not warn him. Like, hey, I've found multiple bodies here. You know, maybe tread lightly.
Oh my god. Well, that was next of kin.
Our next movie is The Rule of Jenny Penn. Here is a short plot summary from IMDb. Confined to a secluded rest home and trapped within his stroke-ridden body, a former judge must stop an elderly psychopath who employs a child's puppet to abuse the home's residents with deadly consequences. I really didn't know a lot about this going in, besides it was going to be old folks and it had John Lithgow, and what a delight. I'm glad I was kind of blind going in because I really liked it. It was directed by James Ashcroft, written by Eli Kent and Ashcroft, based on The Rule of Jenny Penn by Owen Marshall, starring John Lithgow, Jeffrey Rush, and George Hinare, cinematography by Matt Henley, edited by Gretchen Peterson, with music by John Gibson. It was released September 19th, 2024 at Fantastic Fest and March 20th, 2025 in New Zealand, with a runtime of 104 minutes, and I felt like they made good use of their time. So,
Yeah, I would agree.
we begin in a court. It is a New Zealand court. And actually, Alan and I had just been talking about the different sentencing that happens in New Zealand versus the US. And I'm glad we had just had that convo because I felt gave this scene a little bit more context to me, because where the judge is sentencing this guy who I guess assaulted a lot of like children, but he gives him like 16 years and everybody gasps. And I felt like, because me and Alan had just been talking about how, because he likes this one true crime video maker who was mentioning what he would sentence somebody, and he only said like 5 years versus the 20 years that he was sentenced in America. And Alan said he immediately was like, what? Like, why only 5 years? But then the guys next said, and I know if you're American, you're probably thinking, why would I not give him longer time? But he's like, you guys just think of jail as something different, you know? And I was like, yep, we are more punitive. It's not about reforming anybody, trying to make them better, trying to make society better. It's just, oh, we got you. You fucked up. Now you are an indentured servant of the state. Like, that's all we do. And so Alan just laughed to himself. He's like, well, he got me. And I feel like the gasps then are because it's like, whoa, holy shit. Like, you're giving this guy a ton of time. So that was good context for me.
Yeah.
And the judge is really kind of going in on this guy. And there's a woman, I guess, that was involved who...
His wife.
Oh, the guy's wife. Okay, yeah. And she's saying, thank you, thank you. And this is where we get our characterization of the judge is he's like, hey, listen, buckaroo, do not thank me. I'm doing my job. And you are culpable as well because you knew shit was going on and you just let it happen. So this guy clearly has a very firm sense of justice and is not really afraid to say exactly what he's thinking, even if it comes off as extremely, like, not even necessarily rude, just incredibly blunt and seeing people in the worst light. I think you could see somebody. But then he really is having some issues. He's sweating. And I think this was done really well. Sometimes I struggle with like fainting if I like get my blood drawn and stuff. And so anytime a movie does that well, it's both kind of distressing to watch, but also I appreciate it. And he passes out. So the judge's name is Stefan. Is it Stephen or Stefan?
I thought it was Stefan.
Stefan. Yeah.
I've heard it Stefan. I don't know. He's not referred.
Yeah, not often
by his name very much.
So I'll say Mortensen. He's in a shared room with Tony Garfield, who is a former rugby player. He's now in a wheelchair, and he sees that he doesn't have access throughout the facility. So I really liked this. It was also taking such an esteemed, you are literally deciding somebody's future now. You have so much power and rule, and now you are dropped in it doesn't even seem like a great, old folks home. It's kind of like mid-tier, and he obviously feels so powerless, but I think he's kind of telling himself the whole time like that his situation is not actually what it is. He's even thinking of it as like, well, you never know what happens in hospitals, so I'm gonna walk out of here, and that continues to be his belief for a while.
And I think it's set during COVID times because he says right now they're not taking a lot of people in the hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
And then a little later, one of the carers tells him, why don't you get to know your bubble? And remember that? How we were all supposed to like just interact with people in our bubble. So
yeah. And I know it was really tough for like senior homes because of the nature of COVID and whatnot. Seems kind of like a nightmare.
But if this is taking place in New Zealand, it's completely different than what it was like in the US. But
definitely, I think also it's just amazing the population difference between New Zealand and the US. Like, because I was watching the New Zealand Traders, and there's just a comment they make in the second episode where Paul Henry says like, 9 or 12 complete strangers. Meanwhile, half of them know each other super well. And I just Googled to see if anybody else had said something about that. But then somebody mentioned, like, well, there's 5 million people. They're bound to always cast somebody. And I was thinking, like, that is crazy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, like comparing it to even like North Carolina, I'm pretty sure has more than 5 million people in it, right?
I don't know. I'm so bad with numbers.
Well, I'm gonna look this
But
up real quick.
one thing that I have noticed about like New Zealand and entertainment in New Zealand is that, you'll see the same actors over and
Hmm.
over again.
Yeah, small pool. We have 11.05 million. So North Carolina has double New Zealand.
Gee whiz.
That's crazy to think about. So, um, yeah, different world. So he goes through to go into this like patio area. We see this beautiful cat. Long for every time I was on screen, I said, "Alan, look at the cat." And he's talking to this old man who I did not have subtitles on at this point. But this old guy is just like, I understood what he was saying, but I felt like the old people casting in this was so good. Like they just really captured, I don't know, the vibe. And I think it adds a lot to how you feel about what's happening to these people. And so, he's just kind of, this is where we get some backstory for Mortensen, why he's here. Um, he takes a cigarette and the smoker says that he thinks the cat knows when someone's about to die. And Mortensen doesn't accept a drink. And he goes out into the lawn and kind of like lets himself stand up. But then the smoker chokes on his liquor and just catches on fire. And Mortensen just has to stand there horrified because getting out of the chair was a big deal, so he can't run over there. And you just see his face as he's screaming like, help, help, help. And I just thought that what a way to kick off the whole movie. It is insane, but it does, I don't know, I immediately puts you into exactly how he feels, which is that he is now powerless.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the cat just watches calmly, which I feel like a cat would freak out a little bit. This guy's like, ah, screaming.
Yeah, this is like a very chill cat, very chill.
So Mortensen can't sleep. He's just been traumatized. And he uses the little bottle on the side of his bed to go pee. And then he looks up and he sees John Lithgow standing there, just peeking in at him. And, they really made John Lithgow not like, I feel like for a while he's looked like sweet old guy. Like he's looked old, but even in like Dexter, sorry, spoilers, but where he's the big bad, he's like an older guy, but he looks like a put together older guy. Whereas this John Lithgow is like insane looking.
So I think he had prosthetic eyes.
Oh, they
definitely
looked like doll eyes.
Yeah, definitely teeth, but prosthetic eyes as well. The teeth are and I mean, he's a great actor, and so he can make himself look like completely creepy and insane. But I mean, just this like one shot of him like looking in through the door, it's just like, what's going on?
Especially because when the residents are in bed, these are people who do not have great use of or great mobility, and they're kind of tucked in. And so, and it's the most vulnerable you ever are is when, you're sleeping. And so it's almost like, being the little kid and seeing the boogeyman in your closet, and you're a little kid and you can't do anything about it. And I think that's what's so scary about this is like, it's still scary when you're a kid, but you've lived this whole life and now you're just, it just must be. It was really effective, this movie, especially because, like, as I said before, like, my dad always set the tone, I guess, I always had it in my head, like, okay, I guess there's, like, bad old folks' homes. I'm not going to send him there. But then, like, towards the end of his life, that became such a huge concern for him, was, like, proper care, maintaining his dignity and stuff. And it really is scary how if you do not have somebody on your side, just the nature, and definitely, I think, has to be worse in America than New Zealand, of the staff being so overwhelmed that like everybody cannot be seen in the same light. But if you
Mhm.
have somebody in your corner advocating for you, you'll get what you need. Because even one time when I visited him in the hospital, I was like, well, can I get you anything? And he said, yeah, I've been asking for Jello for like so long and they just will not give it to me. And so I just went up and I asked for as much Jello as they could give me. So then he had his Jello. But it's like, if I wasn't there, how was that man going to get his Jello? And, he was not always nice to like service workers. So I believe he asked a lot for the Jello.
Mhm.
And that's, Jello's very different than, all the other ways in which you could feel like you're not being taken care of. So I just feel like they tapped into this fear really well.
Mhm. Definitely.
So the next day, there's a singer entertaining the residents. It's pretty crass. He's singing the Lovely Bunch of Coconut song. And, they all just have to sit there and watch. And we can see on Mortensen's face that he's just like, fuck my life. Like, he's just not enjoying it. The cat then jumps on a seat between two people who quickly vacate their seats, which is so funny. It's like, I'm not letting that in. And now we see Johnny Go-Go sitting alone with his puppet, who I did not mention what the puppet looks like. On his hand, he's got this baby doll with empty eyes. And now thank you for telling me about the prosthetic eyes, because now I'm just clocking how like, he's got the doll's eyes. Oh, it's so scary. And I really don't know. Obviously, John Lithgow's character is not right in the head, but I think what maybe almost made me like this movie and accept all the horrible things that happened was the idea that this was a guy who did have total control over all his faculties, just choosing
Mhm.
to be like finding so much joy in being such a dick to these people who can't do anything. Like, this guy does not need to be in this home. He could be taking care of himself totally fine. And I think the doll, he must now have this bond with it, but it's not really. It's his disguise for the carers in the home to think like, well, that's, just Dave. That's how he is. But I don't think there's anything amiss with Dave besides his psychotic tendencies.
I know, and we'll get to it, but it seems like he's in the prime of his life,
Yes,
This
the
is what he's
most
been living
energy.
for.
Yes, which
Yeah,
is entertaining to watch, honestly.
it really is. And I think the casting is really great because John Lithgow, I mean, he's like a folk singer for like little kids. I mean, he's almost 80. This guy
Mm-hmm.
has had like, a really long lived career, and
Yeah.
he's done a bunch of things, and he's been a sweetheart, in certain roles, and like sort of later, lately he's been playing, psychos and stuff, but um I don't know. He looks like a sweet guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they really kind of had to work physically to make him. And I think the way he's shot a lot is from a lower angle. So
Mm.
he's a tall guy, but I was like, what is he, like 6'5"? Like
Right?
the way they shoot him, he just seems like this monstrous, guy. But anyway, yeah, he's got this sweet kind of like baby face, but
He does.
he really works with it like so well to make it so scary and creepy.
And like he's got so much malice
Mm-hmm.
and almost childlike. Kind of reminds me of like the Last King of Scotland, the way that character was so scary because this was a man with so much power over these people, and yet he had the like emotional intelligence of a child. And so it's kind of like, oh God, when he's throwing a tantrum, what is he going to do to us? And that's just how you come to realize the whole population is feeling towards him.
Yeah.
So then a woman sidles up to Mortensen and tells him that she's just there temporarily while her family's on vacation. Oh my God. Now this one really got me. This woman, because when you were mentioning the interview about like, is this a good advertisement for having children? It's like, I love that this character was there though, because that doesn't mean shit sometimes,
Yeah.
having kids
Yeah.
or not. And it seems like such a common thing of just people. and I'm not in every family. Maybe this woman growing up was like a total demon to her family, and they're like, we just don't want to be around her, but it's still so depressing to hear her just talk. Anytime she gets some time to talk, she's like, well, they're probably coming to get me soon because they're going to pick me up in December. How close is it to Christmas? And Mortensen just, and that's what's so great about his character is it kind of slides a little bit towards the end, but in the beginning he's kind of got the same acuity as Gogo's character. So I mean, he just looks at her and sees a sad old woman but doesn't even pity her, though. He's just like, well, it's October, so
Yeah.
But he's kind of just trying to tell it to her straight, like, which is not really what you're supposed to do, I think, in this situation, but
it's not the kindest thing you could do.
Yeah, but he probably also sees himself in this woman because he's telling everybody like, well, I'm going to get up out of here soon and I'll be walking up the stairs to my home. And now here's a certified loony woman being like, well, when they come get me, probably makes you dislike her more if you're him in a way.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Yeah. And he is kind of being like a male Karen, talking about how upset he is about being in a double occupancy room. And this also felt so real to me because there was just a lot of like miscommunication, I guess, when it came to what my dad thought the hospice place he chose was going to provide versus what they did provide. But then when you're already there and it's already happening, that's it. There's no really finding another place. And it all ended up okay, I think, but still it causes a lot of stress. And I feel like a lot of people must be in this situation where, they think I'm going to be safe and fine and respected. And then they go there and it's like, nope. And you can't even really choose anything else. Oh, because something I forgot to mention is we find out that he just doesn't really have a lot of family and he's not really wealthy or anything. So this is just where he ended up, even though he was a judge. So Tony, the guy in the room with him, tries to make friends, but he is just a total dick. He knows everything about this guy and I guess how much of a bad sports player he was, and just like rips this guy a new one. Or no, I'm sorry, that's later. But he's just a total asshole to him. And so the guy's just kind of like, okay, well, whatever. But then we get a time jump and we see that there's a physical therapist that's working with Mortensen to try to get him to hold a cup. But at the same time, Johnny Gogo is laughing hysterically as he watches TV. And this is just a great depiction of overstimulation. Like, and it's so sad because I guess what they're saying is like, given obviously decline is going to happen, but given the right resources or the right environment, maybe it won't happen so fast. But, here's a guy who once I think you lose the confidence and you start thinking, I'm sick, I'm not going to get better, it really starts to get hard to bounce back from anything. And so he's struggling. And we see later in the bath that Mortensen, he still thinks though, like, I'm fine though. And so he's getting bathed by a nurse and he's like, she has to go get a towel. And he's like, well, I can take care of myself. Like I can stand up. But then when she leaves, he lowers himself down into the water and then starts panicking because he can't get himself out. And this scene is like so rough to watch.
I thought that he did that on purpose.
I thought so too, because I kind of laughed like out loud and kind of like a dry humor kind of way of just like, but I think when you do drown, you do struggle. Like you can't help it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just instinct. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he was kind of like, fuck my life. It's not getting any better from here. But the nurse rescues him before he dies. And so now we see Johnny Gogo, whose name is Dave Creeley, but we're going to call him Johnny Gogo because that's his name in our hearts. He sits alone in his room and he's pretty bored because, he's surrounded by all these people who can't really keep up with him. And he just wanders around the hall somehow. We don't know how yet that he's able to have free reign of this whole place. But he comes upon a woman who thinks that, the woman who's like, my family's coming to get me soon. And she says that she's been there a fortnight. But Dave tells her, well, you've been here for years. And then he hits her on the head with the doll's head. It's like, not super rough, but it like made my jaw drop because it's just so
Mm.
sudden. And
Mm.
he just goes like, "Hello, anybody home?" And it's just so sad. But I guess it's supposed to be like, these are his toys and he can't, they're not even fun to play with right now.
Aw.
I know. So Mortensen wakes up and sees Tony, who is freaking out. It turns out that Dave is sitting in the corner holding up Mortensen's pee jug. He rushes over to Mortensen, pulls down the covers, and just soaks him with the pee, and then leaves the room. So when he tries to explain what happened to the staff, they don't believe him, and Tony does not back him up, and they all just treat him like a crazy old man. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, so this is your pee. Like, they're just not listening to him. And this is where, like, I know this probably does happen, but the extent to which they are so, I kind of wish it was depicted a little bit better. Like, if they
Mm-hmm.
made it seem a little bit more like, why would they believe him? And I know this is part of, Tony not backing him up, but I feel like if I was working there and I see a guy who's this convinced, I would at least have to go ask Dave, hey, why is this guy saying that you did
Well,
this?
the manager lady does
She
do
does
that.
talk. Oh, you're right. She does talk to him.
Yeah, but it's when he's doing his like all spaced out, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a guy who plays with a puppet,
I'm
and so
harmless.
I'm just Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I do that? And it's a great scene because it's like through a door and we don't hear any dialogue, but we can just see with his physicality that that's what he's saying, and
Mm-hmm.
based on what her face is also doing, where she's like, this
This guy
guy's
didn't
like
do
not
it.
a threat.
And if you were anybody watching that, that's what you would think. We
Mm-hmm.
only know this because we know. And I think it's probably also because Mortensen doesn't do himself any favors being such a fucking asshole. Like,
Yeah.
nobody wants to help him, and there's nobody vouching for him. So it is probably just like, man, shut up. But it is sad. You are frustrated on his behalf. So then at lunch, Dave steals Olive's soup. And is caught by the staff and kind of like glowers. But then when they walk away, he just takes it again because what can they do? He looks over at Mortensen, who's just reading a book. And so then Dave insults Tony, but then Mortensen kind of is like, oh, you're trying to insult him? Yeah, here's how you would do it. And just lays into this guy because he's so upset that he did not back him up. Because he's kind of like, okay, dude, like, you just want to let this keep happening to us. And so he doesn't respect Tony in any way. And any scene where they are just, I feel like it's done so well. The way Mortensen is just like always vexing him. He always does just enough to just piss Dave off, which he is not used to.
Yeah, and the expression on Johnny Gogo's face is just like shock. Like, for real? Like,
Yeah.
you're really going there? You're really that cruel?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just met this dude. Like, you don't even know him, but he just like tears him apart, and it's pretty rough to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he's telling this guy, like, you were horrible at sports. They used to be so excited when you were off the bench and stuff. And, like, this guy looks so hurt, and we come to really love Tony. But at the same time, I do like that Mortensen does this because I feel like it is more just, pluming his feathers for, Dave to be like, I am not one to be fucked with. Okay. And so then Dave tells Mortensen, like, well, I'll see you tonight. And so then he flicks pudding into Dave's face. So good.
Nice.
But he's caught he's seen by people, and it sucks because everything that's happening so far does make him look like the aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
So that night, Dave stands outside the divider and then attacks Tony with the puppet. He asks Tony, who rules? And Tony says, Jenny Penn, which is the name of his doll. And then Dave punches Tony in the groin with the hand with the doll. Stefan tries to call the nurse with his little button, but then Dave attacks him and chokes him and tells him not to call out or you'll get worse, which is so like, man, like this whole plot thread of him actually deteriorating because of the stroke he suffered and, not getting better when he thought he was going to is really well done, but it is pretty like rough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very hard. Like I heard a couple of reviews of this film like before we decided to do it. And what a lot of people said is this is really hard to watch. And it is in some ways. I mean, but I think it's because it's realistic,
Mm.
and it is hard to see somebody in decline. And
Yeah.
there's no getting around that. And the thought that that could happen to any one of us is also just terrifying. And so I think that that really works well here. But
Mm-hmm.
also just the torture of of uh, of Tony is it's just really hard to watch because Tony is such a sweet man, and it shouldn't happen to anybody. But it's just really really hard to watch that.
We see that like Tony's whole side is adorned with all of this stuff. Like he clearly has a lot of people who love him very much. And even later they show the outside of their door, which has their photos. And like Mortensen has got no decoration, but Tony's side is all decorated. And so I really like that detail. And yeah, it does make it rough. But in a way, like I found some scenes like I had to look a little bit away from, but on the whole, I didn't really find this one hard to watch. I think because maybe it was a little bit cathartic to watch because I mean, it was tough in a way because this does remind me so much of like what happened to dad and whatnot. But at the same time, it's like, I think it's harder to pretend like that stuff isn't horrible. So when you see other people being like, look at this horrible stuff, and you're like, yeah, that was horrible, it feels kind of good to see it being portrayed as bad as it is. It's like kind of validating in a way.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Yeah. So then Mortensen realizes his button was unplugged the whole time. And Tony says now that Dave has an audience, the abuse has gotten worse and it's going to continue to get worse. Which is poor Tony, man. So then Dave steals dentures from a resident's room, as well as some sweets and a pair of underwear. The scene just disgusted me. I really felt, I guess if there's one thing that was a little bit, I don't even want to say over the top because I know it must happen, but at least with the male characters, we have a lot of people with agency, but none of the female characters have agency, at least none of the female people at the home. And so they're just, it's only punching down to them. And we never get to see anybody have kind of a triumphant moment. None of the women have it. And that was a little bit rough, I guess. I think what balanced the scales on the other end is that you do get to see Mortensen stick up for himself and like not just be ran over. And so you're kind of like, yeah, okay, what's going to happen now? But then when you see him rifling and like, just violating them, it's just like, oh, well, this is horrible.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Like the women, like the carers and stuff, like they seem like they definitely have their own agency. But yeah, you're right. All the residents are either like whatever that non-compul mentis, not in the right mind, or in some other way they just are victims of the abuse and stuff. So
it's rough.
Yeah.
So then the cat emerges from a room, so Dave goes to investigate. A man lies on the floor and reaches out to him, but he just closes the door. That made me laugh out loud because I was like, man, that's so cold.
So cold.
So horrible. So the next day, the residents are dancing. This is a very sweet scene at first. But then Dave comes in and just, again, this was making me laugh. I felt like these things were done well because they're so bad, but kind of in like a tongue-in-cheek way, I guess. It's not the same as like actually violating like a person, but just kind of like bumping them off, and you just see everybody just slowly shuffle off the dance floor, and now it's just him by himself. Like, I loved that scene.
He's just like shoving people around with the doll's head, or just like, he's such a big guy, and he's like just kind of like messing with all these people and making it so that it's just like totally uncomfortable to dance anymore. on the
Yeah, and
dance floor.
everybody's just afraid to do anything. Like they're afraid to exist because this presence is here, but that they won't talk about because that is even scary. Like that is so rough. But then we realize that Dave uses an inhaler. So he is, again, I like this. He's showing a little bit of his age. It's not just that they have like a fully spry 30-year-old man here. Like, no, he's old. He's just not to all these other people's level. So now we see a team of young rugby players who come to the home to meet Tony. And the coach is like, these guys, they have all these distractions like girls and TikTok and whatnot. And, TikTok might be new, but I guess everybody was always distracted by girls. But we just wanted you to, show them, tell them about, how to get in the game. And so this is clearly such a point of pride for Tony that, or I guess, it's so rough because he's so clearly struggling, but this is also kind of a little bit of a detached way of, he's kind of just having to play a role for all these people, but nobody's actually there to ask him if he's okay. And that was pretty rough. It just made me sad.
Well, also at the end, the coach like says to one of the boys, like, what did you get out of that? Like, what was the point of that? And then he's like, no distractions, right? Mm-hmm. And I wondered if that's what happened with Tony. It's like, did he get distracted at some point, and that's why his injury was so severe?
Yeah, could be. Oh, and then he's just kind of like a
lesson.
Oof.
I'm not sure if I was reading that right, but that's kind of because at this point, Tony runs away, basically.
Yeah, he just gets out of there. The way that the coach was depicted was so good. Like, I felt like that was so real.
Mm-hmm, and me too.
Now I feel like this also kind of provides this other plot significance of like the fact that Tony is Maori and like the whole team appears like maybe they are too. And I noticed there's a lot of details at the home, like there's like a few women speaking like, a different language, and then there's another language on like the welcome sign and stuff, and then it becomes kind of like a plot thread. So I thought that was really cool that was included. So afterwards, Tony runs away. Mortensen follows him into the laundry room, which Tony reveals is his private hiding place. Mortensen is like encouraging Tony to help him file an official complaint. And this is also where he says like, I'm going to leave and go home and walk right up my stairs and be at home. But, when I'm gone, the torture will continue for you. So he still thinks he's walking out of here. And Tony just tells him to fuck off. And he even says like, you really know how to make a girl feel special. Cause he's been such a fucking asshole. Like why now Tony's supposed to help him out of the kindness of his heart? It's like, well, no. But now we find out Dave has filed a complaint against Mortensen and placed the items he stole the previous night in his mattress. So, and then, they say like, well, we heard about you flicking pudding in his face, and being, rude in the group area. So, he has lost all credibility now. And it's just so nasty, this thing that they find. And there's kind of nothing he can say. Like, how are they going to believe him? So he then is just walking around this home and sees from the pictures on the wall that Dave actually used to work at the facility, like for a very long time.
Yes.
Which is so interesting. I do love this plot thread because it makes a little bit more sense why everybody gives him I feels like a little bit more leeway of like, well, he's always been here. And like, and maybe in their eyes, he always took such great care of the residents or whatever. So, or maybe he's like just a part of history for all the employees there. So, I thought that was good. And now we know why he can go everywhere. So then we see Dave walking to a shed where he smokes and has a box of Keeps marked key cards. The next day at lunch, Mortensen is sitting across from a resident, but then there's like they start calling it like a blip where now Dave is sitting across from him, and he just begins to, kind of taunt him. And then he's like, you should really watch out for these coffee tables, and just kicks him under the table and keeps saying like, oh, well, you just hit another one, and hits him again, and just keeps doing it. And it's rough. And he's taunting him and telling him he's going to deteriorate so much that he will just wish for it to end. He points out another guy who's just kind of like, kind of like an invalid, just like laying down, and he's like, that's you. And just keeps getting him. But then Mortensen like slams his hand on the table and he's like, yeah, keep kicking me. Like, keep doing that. And I like cheered. I was like, yes. Like, cause I just love that he was like, yes, this fucking sucks, but I'm going to give it right back to you. So that's what kept it from feeling like too much for me. And so then he's removed by staff and, again, looks like he's just a belligerent old man. Mm-hmm. So we see in a montage that, now Mortensen's really beginning to deteriorate. He's, having to repeat these 3 words and he can't remember them. And this is all done so well. Like, it's just hard for him to keep up. And like, he draws these numbers on a clock and they're all on the other side of the page. And then he's even given a pamphlet that says the benefit of puppets, which is just so like, man, fuck my life. It's just such a fucked up moment, I think, for him.
I love that so much. I missed it the first time. I was just like, that is amazing.
Yeah. So then at that evening's torture, Dave is just telling a bunch of racist jokes about Tony to both Mortensen and Tony, about Tony being Maori. And he asks him again, like, who rules? And, he says Jenny Penn. And he makes him do this thing where he has to like kiss the back of his hand, which he calls Jenny Penn's ass, and it's so gross, just so horrible. Like, that's true psychological torture, I think. And so then he asks, Mortensen, who refuses to play, so he starts really torturing Tony. This scene is really hard to watch because he's pulling like on a catheter thing, like it's just too much. I had to look away a lot. But Mortensen doesn't give in. I think in a way he's kind of showing to Tony like it's only getting worse. So clearly we have to do something. So then when Dave asks Mortensen who rules again, Mortensen spits right on Jenny Penn's face. So then Dave repeatedly spits on Mortensen's face, and it's so gross, but so like childish. It's so good. So I think that just really pisses Dave off. Like, he just has to like get out this rage on somebody. So he comes upon Joyce, the woman who's waiting for Christmas to come, who's still looking for her family. She somehow is always outside of her room. Like, this place is really not that great because this seems incredibly dangerous for this woman to be out here, clearly. And so he guides her downstairs. Like, he keeps saying like, oh, I think I see them over there, actually. And he's got like an old staff key card. She grabs it. She's like, that's mine. And he, grabs it back from her. And, at one point she's petting the cat. I kind of didn't catch the whole, like, he knows when somebody dies. I think I didn't register that from the old man. So, I didn't think about how it was foretelling all of this. But then Dave lets her outside and like opens up this gate using his, tall height. And so then he just kind of like lets her walk off into the wilderness, which is such a sad, scary thing. Like, anytime I see a silver alert, I just imagine how horrifying that would be. Obviously for the family, but for that person who just doesn't know what's going on, and you're like in an unfamiliar, it's like, it would be like you're in hell because you're just like, what is this landscape? What is all this stuff around me? So that's pretty rough, and we already know that's not going to end well. So Dave then wanders the facility, and we learn that Tony refuses to divide Dave and ask his family for help because he does not want them to pity him. And he mentions that like the way his like granddaughter looks at him, he's like, I don't want that to change in her eyes. And that's just so like sad. It's just like really sad. And I think another interesting thread of like, oh, well, you could have a family that loves you and like, just thinks this is the best place for you. And maybe that won't even help because it kind of would also depend on if they even know that this is happening to you. Um,
Also, I think it says something about masculinity,
yeah.
and Tony's idea of what it means to be a man, and to
Mm-hmm.
even ask for help is like a bridge too far, because that would
Mm-hmm.
mean that he's not a man anymore or something like that. I was a little confused by this until I started thinking about it, but he's very proud, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he's been sort of laid low by this injury, is
Mm-hmm.
bad enough. But the idea that he would have to ask maybe even like a female member of his family for help.
Too much.
Too much.
Whereas like Mortensen's got nobody, so he just sees it as like sticking up for himself, which is all
Yeah.
he's got.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and but I think he really comes to an understanding with Tony, which I think is sweet because here's two men who have lived their lives completely differently, and valued different things, but here they are in the exact same spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very interesting. So Dave goes back, but when he um, goes to he's trying to open up a door and then he realizes that he's got Joyce's key card and not his. So he's like, "Oh my god." And this scene's great cuz he's just freaking the fuck out, like running back. Now he's got to run kind of in the dark and like find her. Um and so she dies in the night. This is so depressing. He comes upon her body, like she's just face down in like this shallow, kind of like boggy area. Um
Mm-hmm.
but, he's just concerned with getting their cards back. He does not give a shit. Like he knew she was going to die. That was the plan. So, then he just like has an asthma attack. And then like there's they show like a shot at one point of like the sun coming up and her body just laying
Just
there.
lying there. Yeah. And the
That
camera
was
pulls back and back and back and back and back. And it's just so sad. And now she's face up, but, her body's just lying there, in the
mhm.
elements all by herself.
It's so sad, like just discarded and like, not properly cared for. I think that was definitely
Mm-hmm.
like really rough because it's also kind of like they make it a beautiful scene in a way. Like you hear these beautiful birds chirping, the sun's rising, but then here's this like person who's been failed so utterly when they were
Yeah.
requiring help. So that's really rough. So then we see that again, Mortensen is not doing well. He is going through, he's not improving physically, and he keeps having these like, snapping in and out of what's happening, and that, he's getting some cognitive decline. And now we see that, Tony's also continuing to be tortured. And now there's all these like distorted, like we see scenes from the beginning of the movie where, because right in the beginning he smashes a bug with his hand, but now it's like he smashes it and all this blood comes out from under his hand, which does make sense because I mean I feel like that moment would be stuck in his mind of like the moment it all changed in my life. So I liked that. I thought all of the, because sometimes when people try to show these like what's going on, this person's really going through it, it just feels kind of like they do a bunch of camera angles and it's like, woo. But this really felt like
Mm-hmm.
everything made sense. All the visual imagery made sense and it just conveyed where this guy is. So, despite his worsening physical faculties, Mortensen tries to stand up against the constant bullying. He cannot deal with it. So, he, first off, he
Mm.
gets like he steals like a key card from like a nurse's wallet, and which I just love this, like he's a sharp guy. I like that we have a character who's smart and figuring out the world around him. And so while Dave goes to get sent to the showers, he goes in, and at first I didn't know exactly what he did. Like he's just kind of looking through his stuff, and then later, Dave starts suffering an asthma attack, and uh, he then runs back to his room and tries to try all of his inhalers, but they've all been used up. That was so great. I was laughing out loud, and I was like, "Yeah, that's what you get." And because that would be scary. I mean, it
Totally
is a
scary.
taste of his own medicine, but well, I guess it wasn't because the asthma inhalers weren't working. But I just laughed and I was like, I told Alan what happened because he wasn't really paying. He was like playing a game, but I was like, he just used all the inhalers and now he can't breathe. Like, I was so pumped about it.
Did you have any sympathy for him when he was trying to get back to his room?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I didn't, because to me, this was kind of like, if you fuck with people, they will fight back. So
Yeah.
if you had never fucked with anybody, this never would have happened to you. This was a
Right.
self thing. So you only have yourself to blame, in my opinion. So in a way, even if he had died, I kind of would have thought like, well, how many deaths have you caused, bud? You know?
Did you think that he died at this
No.
point? Oh, okay.
I was like, it's too peaceful, you know? And there is a great moment of calm. Like, they're watching, now they get to watch whatever they want on TV. And there's even, like, they're watching how the moray eel and this other creature have a symbiotic relationship. And Tony says to Mortensen, like, I guess everybody needs somebody. So they're becoming friends. And that made me really happy,
Me
because
too.
there's other scenes of people trying to reach out to Mortensen, just other people who live there, trying to be like, hey, bud, you know, what's up? And him just being such an asshole. And I think it's true that you need people. And I guess in his whole life, he never really had people to rely on. So I think it's really beautiful that in the end, you know, he gets to forge this friendship with a man so different from him, which is really, that part I think is really sweet to watch. But yeah, I knew after this, I was like, something really bad's gonna happen. They have angered the beast. So Mortensen has another blip during like a great moment, which is so sad. Like, he's kind of laughing and smiling, and then he wakes up to Dave just running down the hall, and because he looks down and like the ground under him is moving, so he's being pushed in a wheelchair. And at first he's like, "Oh, that's okay, I don't need." And he looks up, and then of course it's Dave pushing him down, and he just pushes him right into kind of like a shared room where there are these two people who I think were kind of established as being like, maybe we just saw them in the background, this like couple.
Yeah.
And because also this guy, I guess, always has a button that says what time it is. Like, so almost in every scene, just at one point, it's like, the time is 12:59 p.m. So,
Yeah.
which is
No, I
sweet.
think he's blind. And
Yeah,
so,
okay.
yeah.
And so Dave just pushes, Mortensen over in the wheelchair so he can't move. And then here we have him sexually abusing a female resident in front of her blind husband that he's pushed out of the way. And this scene is like just so hard to watch because, the husband just keeps screaming like, I love you. Like, I'm sorry. What are you doing to her? And I think that, now I'm thinking about it, that's so rough that you could even have like somebody you know and love with you, and that won't save you from this guy. But yeah, this stuff with the women, I think, is hard to watch because we don't have any strong female old women in they're all victims, which I think is important, but still depressing. Because now we see Mortensen, kicking ass, and he beats Dave with his cane, but ends up in the hospital.
So I wondered, they spent so much time, showing him in his bed and then like pulling away, almost like that body that they were pulling away from. And I just wondered, did you think that Mortensen had another stroke?
I think he did, because I feel like at one point they've added some prosthetics to make one side of his face limp. So yeah, I think, and all that stress too would just be so horrible for you.
And lack of sleep and just,
all the things you need to overcome anything. He's not getting any of it. So now we know shit's about to get real. So Dave visits Mortensen in the night. And I liked this scene. He admits that he finds the judge very impressive. And we have known that he always has known he's a judge, which, I mean, I kind of at first attributed to like, okay, well, maybe he just has insider info on these people. But now it turns out he has seen him before in his life. And he explains, this moment where when he was 40, he saw him with like he's like describes him as looking kind of like, uh, like an overconfident asshole, but looking up to him and being like, that's a guy who's got his life together. And that he himself at the age of 40 didn't really have his life together. I mean, I think working in a care home is a great profession, but he's done the same job at the same place for his whole entire life and clearly now has nobody who loves him. And so he felt bored and worthless, but now he's just so happy that he's got this adversary and that like this is maybe the prime of his life, like that he gets to have this guy who matches wits with him so well. Because even Mortensen at one point is like, you want me dead, and he's like, well, not exactly, like I do want to torture you, but that would be boring if you were just dead. But he wants to break the judge. That is what he wants to do. And so and I mean, this is when he's at his lowest, the judge. So he torments him. And now finally, Mortensen says that Jen Pell rules and cries when he licks her asshole. But I think this is all just he's just trying to give a false sense of security to Dave, make him feel like, well, no, I think he is broken, but I think that is the effect it has, is like, okay, like I win, I don't, before he was on his toes. So Tony is really overcome with this. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's just a great moment where Tony and Mortensen are both talking while they're in bed. And Mortensen says like, I think the altar that you have prayed to or something like that has served you, and like just basically saying you valued relationships and now you have got a beautiful family. I didn't, and now I'm wondering, should I have done that? And just saying that he valued being a judge the most in his life, but now look where it's gotten him. It doesn't really matter much to his present situation. And I thought that was a pretty cool moment. And but it also still shows he's kind of a dickhead, because he's been quoting like, things the whole movie. So then now Tony gives him a quote and he corrects him. He's like, well, actually, it's this. Like, you're such a dick.
Can't help himself.
Yeah, he can't help himself. So Tony now is feeling pretty revved up. So he finally stands up to Creeley, challenging him. Like the next day during the, in the dining room, he stands up and does a haka in the dining room, like just does this, like, stands up and kind of almost like, like a war cry of like, I'm not getting pushed around by you anymore. But the whole staff and everybody else sees it kind of like, okay, old man, like, but Dave knows what it means. And he's like eyeing him meaningfully the whole rest of the day. So, then Mortensen and Tony lure Creeley into the isolated laundry room where they attack and smother him. Like, Tony holds his legs and basically Mortensen, like, makes it so he can't breathe and he dies. And they both like lay back, like exhausted, but the evil has been vanquished now. And since this is the worst care home ever, they don't invent. They're just like, well, I guess he ended up in the laundry room, okay. Like, these people suck. They're like, yeah, well, I guess that was another guy who just died and we didn't notice. And yeah, I guess she just wandered out. I kind of was like, you guys suck.
I wish they would have explained a little more about the woman wandering off by herself. Because, I mean, that's pretty hard to explain.
Yeah.
So many things would have had to happen to get her like outside that final gate.
Yeah. And they have no cameras or anything?
Well, I think that's in one of the Letterboxd reviews. But yeah, I did wonder about that too. Like they have those old timey reflective things that they used to have in grocery stores. But I mean, that's not going to cut it in this place.
I feel like if this movie had taken place, if you're trying to tell me it took place actually decades in the past, I could then accept it. Yeah. But I can't accept this because I even think the shittiest, like I've got a Ring doorbell, like, and now you're telling me a facility that has money, I know they're not raking it in, but yeah, that just felt, because even the judge realizes, because he sees the gate and he's a tall guy. And so I think he puts two and two, and he's like, well, she could have never done this. And
No.
so like a resident did that, and I guess her family doesn't give a shit. But yeah, I feel like if I was the family, I'd be like, excuse me, my relative died like in the
Right.
mud, like a mile away from your facility. Like,
Yeah, I
no,
know.
that's not okay. So yeah, that's a bit weird. But now the evil's been defeated. So in the days following Dave's death, we see Mortensen forming friendships with other residents. But then, I didn't notice this. The
Yeah.
cat sits next to his wheelchair and looks up at him. And sometime later, we see Jenny Penn getting disposed of in an outdoor fire pit. And she just like slowly begins to burn. But it's nice that they had those few days of peace, you know?
Yes.
And I'm glad that he got to, you know, go out with some feeling of triumph, at least. That's nice.
Yeah, justice was served.
Yeah. Well, here's some trivia. Director John Ashcroft said the film is ultimately about tyranny and described the story as the rise of a dictator in the least of likely places. That's interesting. I could see it. To add authenticity to the film, all of the actors in roles as caretakers received training from an actual care facility, like how to talk to patients, how to pick them up using a harness, and how to walk with them. Okay, that actually is scary because the whole time I thought that they were talking to these people like they were the biggest dummies on the planet. Like, I felt like if I
Well,
understood why the judge would be so fucking pissed off because it's all this like niceness, but not feeling actually cared for.
yeah. One thing I did notice was like the carers would always try to put a hand on the patient, like on their shoulder or something like that. And so I'm wondering if that's part of the training. I mean, me too. Like I've been in old folks' homes before, and just the way that the patients are talked to, I would go insane within 5 minutes, you know?
They would call
So
me a problem child. Like
yeah.
it, and I witnessed it a little bit with also like how nurses and stuff, like some nurses were great when they talked to dad, and I could tell that like, or they would talk to me too. And I thought like, well, this is just a nice person, but they're not being, some of them were really just upfront with him about stuff, or would just be like, oh, why are you saying that? Okay, well, let's see what we can fix about this, you know, and seem to be treating him, but with like an adult and not like a baby man. But some people, it just felt so like watching them, I was like, this is gross. Like, I know he doesn't like this.
Yeah.
But also it's hard to just say to somebody like, hey, can you not do that? Because I don't know how to be a care person. Well, what does Letterboxd have to say about it? Max Narvaez gave it 5 stars, not for the faint of heart. I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree too.
Lindsay gave it 5 stars. This is one of the most disturbing films I've seen in a long time. Strokes and senior care make it all that much worse. Acting is elite, powerfully horrifying. I agree, Lindsay. Bronwyn! What a lovely name. Bronwyn gave it 5 stars. Puppets, old people, negligent care staff. It doesn't get much more frightening. I would agree with that too.
True.
Nathan Mancuso gave it a 0.5 star. All they had to do was just check the security cameras and everything could have been solved in the first 10 minutes. That's true. They need to invest in some.
It is true.
And I did say this. I was like, what is sad is this could just happen again. Like I said that to Alan.
Yeah.
I was like, this moment's resolved, but the system is still fucked for these people.
Yeah.
Luke Ross gave it a 0.5 star. A group of kids came into the theater halfway through the movie and asked which movie this was, and I went absolutely fuck off on them. Clearly not your movie, fuck ass. Dumb little shits had no etiquette. Anyway, this movie sucked. That is so funny. This reminds me, you and I saw Insidious in theaters, and there were these kids behind us being just like so annoying, like over the top. And at one point you turned around and you were just like, said something like, other people are trying to watch the movie. And they shut up. And I was so amazed. I thought that they were going to start being ruder, but it actually worked. And I was like, hell yeah, Mom. That was awesome. Verilyn08 gave it a 0.5 star. God, I hate this fucking piece of ass. The ass review.
Well, I had to put it in there somewhere.
Of course.
Even though a piece of ass is usually used in a different context.
That's true. When we're talking about Jenny Pens.
Maybe.
How would we rate it? Dolls. I'd give it 4 in a doll head.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
4 in a doll head.
Yeah, it's not perfect,
but it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It was entertaining. I did laugh out loud a lot. And I felt like the horror felt balanced. There was enough kind of like powerfully triumphant moments that you didn't feel too bogged down by all the terribleness.
Yeah.
What have we learned? Choose your care homes carefully, people. If you can. I guess that's not a choice we all get to make.
I also think it's really hard to stand up against tyranny.
Yeah.
It just is really difficult, but necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if nobody else can help you, or is willing to help you and stuff, that would be pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
Would we watch it again?
Yeah.
I would.
I've seen it a couple times. I'd watch it again in a little while.
Need a little break.
Yeah.
Favorite scene and or kill?
It's kind of morbid, but Johnny Go-Go trying to get back to his room, I think was really, really effective.
Yeah. Seeing that there was a weakness he had, I think was good.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would just be like, oh, that nothing can kill this guy. I don't know. I guess I really like the scene where he's kicking him under the table, but he actually does stand up for himself. I thought that was, it did make me go like, yes! And I did just like, I guess, emotionally, the bond between Tony and Mortensen. I said to Alan, look at this old man justice.
Yeah.
Who wins the You Fool Award? I'm going to say Johnny Go-Go because he messed with the wrong one.
He sure did, but I would also say Joyce's family.
Yeah. Yeah. God. Oh, that was so rough. Justice for Joyce.
Oh, I know. R.I.P. Joyce.
But also that cat was great, so.
That cat was amazing.
The Doom cat.
Well, thank you so much, Mac, for having this conversation with me today about Next of Kin and the Rule of Jenny Penn.
I loved it.
And thank you, WoHos, for joining us and for all your support. It means the world of horror to us truly. Next time, we will be looking at vampire films with NOSFERATU 1922 and 30 Days of Night. Remember, WoHos, we love you. And don't go into the basement.
Yay, we did it.
This one for the books.